Right, but in the movie, that sort of seance or that that implicit contract seems to have broken down. Like there's a disturbance in the field, and people don't believe it anymore. I mean, halfway across town, the limo sort of gets smashed by a giant rat.
Yeah. Well, but you know, it's interesting. I mean, now the protesters and the rioters in the movie are not exactly Occupy Wall Street. They were written and conceived before that movement. But it has been pointed out that the sort of 99%ers want to be 1%ers. It's not like they're anti-capitalist. They're not communists who think capitalism is a bad thing. They just want more of it for themselves. So they're not. It's not.
I think that's a complete misinterpretation of the gesture of the movement.
Yeah. Well, that's good. But I mean that has been posited. You know that you spread more of the wealth around so that we have some more of it.
I guess
is that wrong?
Part of what this is a movie where it's hard to know who to root for. Okay?
Well, I was talking about the real Occupy Wall Street movement. In the movie, it's a different thing.
Right.
There's a quote from Marx on the screen, or an allusion to Marx. Whereas I don't think you're going to get quotes from Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto from the Occupy Wall Streeters.
Well, there are people that argue they should have articulated a little more specifics, but in this film, sort of things have broken down, and part of what I was ending up thinking about is I wondered what happened to his character, and I'm not spoiling anything. But I also wondered what was happening in that world that Mr. DeLillo and you made in terms of were we seeing a momentary sort of spasm, or were things fundamentally changing?
Rob.
In the world of it. It's weird because I mean I've always just thought it was just it's a character study. I mean that's why I think I don't know if this is why you were going there, but I mean some of the scenes weren't even in the car when I signed up. There's about 80% of the scenes in the limousine when I first signed on, and David was putting more and more and more of them in there, and I think it is because I think he bears no real relationship. His story with the financial market. I didn't do a single shred of research. I didn't study any traders. There was nothing. I was looking at sociopaths. I mean, that's sociopaths and Howard Dean, which and just kind of random, almost random elements of things, and stuff about music. I mean, that was kind of. I was listening to like John Cage and things. I mean, it's like just trying to, I don't know, find someone who it's more about rebirth than the world. I mean, he doesn't want to be part of the world. I think the world is exactly the same. He's living totally independently to it.
Yeah.
And is desperate to live independent to it. That's why one of the reasons why I thought it was quite hopeful, because he does in a funny sort of way want to change the world, and.
Well, he certainly is in trying to self-actualize in a way.
Yeah. It's.
You know, ultimately, the meltdown financially in the movie is a personal one. It's this character's meltdown. It's not, there's no mention of the euro, and there's no mention of the eurozone, and there's no mention of, in fact, there's no mention of an economic meltdown in general in the movie.
But there is sort of a cultural meltdown underway in that there's these ambient street protests.
Yeah, at a certain point, but then his character says to one of the other characters, to Samantha Morton, who's playing his chief of theory, he says, 2 hours, what was it? It was a global protest. Now what? Nothing.
Right.
Because it disappears. And you don't see it in the movie anymore. And so that would suggest that it is a spasm, rather than an indication of real global change.
It's a dream. The riot's a dream. I mean, it's kind of, even doing it as one of the main things, because all the Occupy stuff was going on at the time, and just being on a set and having 200 extras really rocking the limousine around. and we're doing a scene. I mean, you do one take and it's kind of frightening, and then afterwards you just you do the fourth, fifth take and you don't even notice it. Like you're just playing the scene.
Well, and I mean that's the way you guys played it in the movie is the characters are not engaged in the fact that their limo is sort of under attack, and they're like, "Oh, would you like another cocktail?" Then it's just like they keep.
Well, I mean, they're noticing it, but they're sort of discussing it as though it's an abstract thought rather than. Well,
his character is amused by it. I mean, a woman comes up with the big old rat at the window, and he just kind of.
She just had a funny face. I just liked her face. That was just that was an instinctive reaction. That was actually the one scene that's not part of my performance. That wasn't contrived at all.
I thought you were looking at her sort of glowy. In the but just to we'll show another clip in a minute. But just to dive into the politics for a minute, do you think the American capitalist system is out of whack?
Well, I wouldn't say just the American system.
Okay, do you think the global...
Yeah, I think it is. I think it definitely is. I mean, but what do I know? I don't even own any stocks, as I've said. But no, yeah, I think it definitely is. I think the whole idea, the Fukuyama book, End of History,
right.
Like basically American capitalism is where the world has been going and evolving to, like Darwin is evolving to this high point. Well, that's a misunderstanding of Darwin, because Darwin never supposed that evolution was taking you to higher point. That actually was a religious concept, that man, we start as animals, but ultimately we will evolve into angels. But evolution isn't taking you to a higher place, it's just taking you to a different, more diversified place. That's all. And so I don't want to get too, but it's the philosophy of Hegel was...
I knew we'd get to Hegel. Knew it.
I won't haggle with Hegel, but his idea, this is a German philosopher, he thought that man was evolving and society itself was evolving almost like a creature to become more and more sophisticated, more refined, and getting to a higher and higher point. And used history as saying that there was a purpose to history, there was an end point of history that we were heading for. And so you have the American sort of philosopher Fukuyama saying, yeah, the end of history is us. We're the high point. And that was before 2008, and suddenly you could see what was wrong with capitalism. The whole idea that, no, it doesn't need to be regulated because it'll just take care of itself, it'll be perfect, it'll be beautiful. Human beings don't work that way, It's like communism, as someone said, great theory, wrong species. Meaning human beings cannot do this. It
Right.
sounds great, but really because of the way people are, so complex, so competitive, so, in some ways so malicious, sometimes dark, sometimes funny, like those clips. They are too tricky, for this perfect way of arranging society to work. So I think, I think that the way the gears have gone off in capitalism, honestly, any observer of human nature could see that coming a mile away. But I guess people want to delude themselves to think, what's working so well for them, and they're making a lot of money and feeling very powerful, masters of the universe, all that kind of stuff. They want to believe that that's it. That's the ultimate reality.
Rob, I'm wondering if you've watched sort of the wheels pop off. You've been living in America pretty steady now, or yes? Mm-hmm. Watch the wheels pop off and you think, wow, there's traders, there's bankers who are skating around regulation. What if the media paid as much attention to that as they do to my romantic life?
I was literally saying that this morning. That's really strange. I said the exact same thing. I mean, it's
were you monitoring us? Do you have like some little drones that hover?
That's going to be about your next movie. My whole technique about using technology to track.
Because Rob was just saying that. Exactly.
No, I mean it kind of. I mean, there's this weird thing about accountability, like where you think stuff like paparazzi or whatever. I don't think that you know, I'm like a private citizen. I don't make any laws or anything, and yet I have you know, I don't have the if a bunch of people followed you around, you call the cops, you get them arrested. It's you know, it's whatever. Like, but it kind of, and it impinges on your reality on a day-to-day basis, and it's kind of, there's this weird relationship with fame in America where it's kind of valued, I think, disproportionately highly, and so, you know, it's something to do with, like, this is a kind of American dream aspect to it. I mean, it's an attainable thing for everyone, but you know, with politicians and things, you know, I think they really should. It would actually make people behave a lot better, like with politicians and bankers, if they actually had, if people were interested in reading about them. But no one's interested because it's probably too miserable, to be honest. Like,
right. But you'd like to sit in the posse that follows you after them.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't want to be the one responsible for asking them to go, because then I'd probably get thrown out of the country. But I mean, you know, things fall apart when they're supposed to fall apart. Like, it's kind of, there's I don't think, you know, America's a very hopeful country, and you know, it's funny coming from England, where the whole main cultural attitude is like being the underdog all the time. I don't think, and but it's strange to live in and kind of fascinating, amazing to live in a place where, you know, like the idea of freedom, for instance, like, is kind of held up at its only country, I think, which values the word so highly. I don't even know what I'm talking about. So literally, like, I was trying to go somewhere with it, and then it's too late. But yeah, what was even the question? What am I talking about? It's terrible. I'm literally listening to you talk about Hegel.
I actually remember what Rob said when he was articulate and knew it. Well, I could repeat that.
But the other thing, the thing about Hegel as well, I just want to say, but just to redeem myself, that I didn't realize there's a Calvin and, you know, Calvin and Hobbes. There's one of my favorite Calvin and Hobbes cartoon strips called Scientific Progress Goes Boink. Has this whole thing about Hegel. I had no idea it was about Hegel. It's like Calvin is having this conversation with his dad, saying that the whole of human, the whole of human history was to create me. But anyway.
You know, I think now hearing Rob, I think I have to reshoot the movie. Another actor.
I only read books with pictures.
It's okay. We could CG in another guy. It's possible now.